Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to draw our organic object pretty realistically. This was a fall leaf that I had that bent, and so I drew it that way. But you can draw several different images here. You can try to draw, once again, a slightly different leaf, but you can draw, a few different images. You can draw them pretty realistically in scale. You can draw them bigger or smaller. That doesn't really matter at this point, but you want to put a good amount of detail in them, at least with just value, or just line, excuse me, not value. And so from there we can start to kind of manipulate the image and start to make it into an abstraction. So on the worksheet that I gave you, it goes through a list of different things that we can do to abstract something. We can exaggerate interesting elements, we can simplify, we can extend and curl, we could zoom in, and that's something George O'Keeffe did a lot of. We can make it more geometric, we could fracture the space, sort of like a Picasso, and we can repeat and rotate. We can do the repeat and rotate with a number of these different things, so we can kind of come up with a lot of combinations for ways that we can, simplify, stylize, crop in, make more geometric. So the first one that I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it on a piece of tracing paper. Is I'm going to basically kind of zero in and simplify an area. So with the tracing paper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on top of my drawing, okay? And I'm going to kind of go in and simplify it slightly. Now it's nice to have a border. So I have already cut some 4x5 frames that you can use, and if your object is big enough that it will actually be a close-up in that case, you can go ahead and do that. Another thing you can do is use your cropping L's. And so for the cropping L's, what I can do is I can keep it into the standard rectangular shape, but I can rotate it. So I can alter how I do this frame and try to come up with a really good composition. So how am I going to arrange this leaf in that rectangle? And I want it to stay the shape of the canvas. So I would draw in maybe where my border is. If it's a little crooked, it's not going to be that big a deal. Right? So I'll go in there and do that. And then if I was going to simplify, which is the first one, what I would do is kind of take out some of the detail. So I'd actually put less detail in. So maybe I would smooth this out a little bit, maybe make this a little bit more simplified, take away a little bit of the bumps of it, maybe smooth it out some, right? So I would kind of take away and almost like make it a little bit more geometric or a little bit more simplified. And for this one, you would want to really make sure that it was still kind of an elegant sort of drawing. You wouldn't want it to become too basic or boring. And of course, you've seen the presentation, but also on your worksheet, this one here by George O'Keeffe is very simple, very basic, but the value and the color are very elegant. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. You can just simplify. Okay, so let's see. I have an example that is done like that. Right? Maybe I should just finish this one. So we'll just kind of go in here. Simplify. Okay, so it's simplified. Another thing that we can do is we can exaggerate, right? So I can take the same leaf, right? Take the same leaf, do the crop again, and I want to be able to have it be a close-up. So maybe this time I actually take a part off. But I want to keep it a rectangle, the same shape as the board. And so I can put in my border, so that my edge of the canvas. And what I can do here is I can exaggerate. So here I can, like, maybe this part starts to curl, right? Maybe this part comes in a little bit more nobular. And I can kind of exaggerate the angles if I wanted to and kind of play on this. So it could be like a slight variation. It could be something more dramatic. right? You could kind of do it as like a pattern if you wanted to, kind of repeat these shapes. You can make a more teardrop if you wanted to. Right, and you can kind of go and reevaluate, and like maybe if I wanted this part to be bigger, I could go in like that, right? But you could make it more curvy, more bumpy. You could take a beautiful quality of it and add to it. Okay, so that is exaggerating and stylizing. Okay, so that is taking a beautiful quality of it and extending it. Okay, the next one is a zoom in. So the zoom in could be realistic, it could be exaggerated, it could be stylized. So what you basically want to do is really go in and try to find some interesting details that you could, you know, base a whole composition on. And you can rotate and play with these. You know, maybe it's something like this. Maybe it's the edge here, right? Maybe there's a better one that I have here that I could go in and zoom in. Probably not very interesting. Oh, can't see it. Interesting with that, but maybe my flower or my pod would be better for this. Sorry, it's difficult to do with the setup that I have here, but you can see how this might be better to kind of zero in and just get into that intersection of the flower. And so I could zoom in just so much that it'd be hard to tell it was a flower anymore. That's sort of like a standard of George O'Keeffe. It's kind of going in and, you know, it's kind of showing the inner beauty and quality of it. So you could just copy it like that, but you could also stylize, like I said. The next one that is on the list is to make it more geometric. And so to make it more geometric, you can make it more angular. Make it more angular. And so what I would do is I would grab my image again. Okay. And, oh, production error here. Okay. So I would make it, use my tracing paper again, and I would try to make it straighter or more pointy, make it look less organic. So once again, find the cool part of the composition, right? And maybe it's a section of it. And then what I could do is take and make it more geometric. Now the key to this is you want to have variation in how you do it. If all the lines are exactly the same, it's gonna be really, really boring. So you want to change the space, change the length of your lines to go in here and add definition to it. All right, so like maybe some short, really short lines there, maybe a longer line there. Right. Right, so maybe that's not too interesting, but I could always, I didn't even draw the border there, but maybe what I could do is, you know, draw this in. Okay, that's option one, but maybe it would look better if I rotated it some, right, and kind of continued it. Or what would happen if I took and repeated the image over again. So I have like another piece of tracing paper, and I could shift it and do it one more time. So I could take the same image, I could trace it. Right? I'm doing it fast, but you would probably want to be more specific about it. All right, and what if I wanted to make it look like it repeats again, or it flips again and meets? Right, so I could do both of those images together. Kind of looks like crab legs or something like that. So you can do that. You can repeat and flip. You can echo things, like put them next to each other in front of. Right? And then the last one that I have is just another variation of making it more geometric. It's kind of in the lines of like a Picasso. So what I could do is find the good composition once again, try to find some good balance here, and then I draw in my frame. Oop. Draw my frame straight. Okay, and what I could do is use a geometric line to kind of break up the space. So I would maybe take horizontally across here. Maybe I could do a slightly different direction. Maybe I could do one that's more of a vertical. Right? Sorry. Come on, back in focus. Okay, so what I would do is I would draw one of these sides exactly how I see it. Then the other one, I'd want to shift it. And so I can actually move this frame if I wanted to too, right? So I could take this and I could shift it over slightly and trace the same thing, but now it doesn't actually line up. So wherever it hits a line, it's not going to line up anymore. And so you can connect these things together with this sort of thing. So once again, move it, go off, move it back. So it will kind of look like shattered glass in a way at the very end, right? So there's different ways. I would probably not break it up into too many parts because then it gets too complicated, right? So we can make things more shattered and geometric, more angular, right? We can make something more close up, right? We can stylize it either slightly or more exaggerated. Right? And we can repeat and rotate. And so that's what I actually did for mine. Is that I took that one that I had stylized and I repeated and rotated it and inverted it, right? And so then I will add some color changes to it. So these were fall leaves, so instead of doing the fall leaves, I used fall for the background, and then the cool kind of crisp fall color of the sky as actually the color for the leaves. So we'll actually go in there and add color to it later.